Let's go to the daily events as they happen throughout March. Wednesday the 1st of March of 2023. Iranian schoolgirls targeted in spat of poisoning attacks. A recent spat of mass illnesses at girls' schools in Iran was caused by deliberate poisoning used chemical compounds, a senior Iranian health official told the semi-official Fars news agency. So, what in the world is happening in Iran? There is a revolt from the younger generation, all the way down to the school kids. And so, they go and poison their own children in schools. Unbelievable what is happening in Iran. Thursday the 2nd of March. First after-school Satan Club in Colorado sets to launch at Paonia, a K through 8, the first ever after-school Satan Club in the state of Colorado will launch Monday. It is the product of the Satanic Temple, a non-theistic religious organization in the United States. It's a registered religion. They're allowed to do that. And so satanic influence all the way down to kindergarten is allowed. Unbelievable. Friday the 3rd of March. Once again, Canada is in the news. This time a young man speaks up in a Catholic school, and watch what happens.
Free speech and religious freedom under fire again in Canada. This time it's not pastors getting arrested over COVID-19 restrictions, but a 16-year-old high school student. Josh Alexander shared his thoughts about transgender ideology at St. Joseph's Catholic High School in Renfrew, Ontario. Officials suspended him from class for the rest of the school year, and when he showed up to class for the second semester, he was promptly arrested by 2 police officers. Well, here to share what happened is Josh Alexander. Josh, it's good to talk with you. So what happened in class? What did you say that got you in trouble?
Yeah, thank you for having me on. So the whole issue started back in October, I suppose. I had moved to the Catholic board, and female students in the school informed me that male students were using the female washrooms, and they were concerned by this. So I decided to talk about that. I voiced my beliefs, and I expressed concern to the principal. A female student also expressed concern to the principal, and we were both ignored. So at that point, I decided to organize a protest outside to shed some light on what was going on behind closed doors. And they ended up suspending me indefinitely 2 days before the actual protest. They gave me an exclusion order. This exclusion order was completely unlawful and discriminatory, and so I decided to show up to school regardless of the exclusion order. And at that point, they hit me with a trespassing notice and another suspension. I waited all of that out until the end of the semester, lost 4 of my credits, and by the beginning of the next semester, with my lawyer, I informed them that I would return to school and continue to adhere to my religious beliefs. Not long into that time, I was brought to the office. The principal blocked the exit, and 2 police officers ended up entering the building. And when they told me to leave, I explained to them the situation, how I was only in that situation because of my beliefs, and that I exercised my fundamental freedoms, and that I wasn't going to leave on a request. So they ended up arresting me, and they charged me with trespassing.
Were you hateful or disrespectful? What tone did you take when you said what you did?
No, I wasn't disrespectful at all. I voiced my beliefs, my sincere beliefs, and I never directed at a specific trans student that was doing anything. I don't condone their behavior, but I also sympathize with them because they're a victim of our society and our education system, and the terrible parents that have encouraged and pushed that on their children. I was called a racist, a sexist, a bigot by staff and students were involved in this stuff. And yeah, I just continued to voice my beliefs, and I had ended up getting me arrested. There was conditions they wanted me to agree to in order to return to school. As a Christian, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to accept the falsehood. I'm not going to go along with the mainstream narrative that is completely contrary to God's natural order. So I couldn't agree to those conditions, and that's where I'm at this point.
Were you actually taken to the police station and booked, put in jail?
No, they charged me from the cruiser, and then they ended up releasing me to my brother.
Okay, and what was the reaction of your parents having their son arrested?
I doubt they're very happy about that. I mean, they recognized that all I had done was express my beliefs, and they weren't too happy with the response from the Ontario Provincial Police or the school board.
So they were supportive of their son expressing his faith in a Catholic school.
Yes.
Imagine that. The principal declined to do an interview with a reporter from the National Post, saying he couldn't comment about your case because of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act that prevents him from talking about specific student cases. So what would you like to see happen now, Josh?
Well, we're taking my school to the Human Rights Commission. We also just had a presentation at the school board meeting, and we got to, I had a representative from Parents as First Educators. They got to give a presentation and explain where we were coming from a bit and offered some resolutions. I don't know where that'll go, but hopefully we can find a resolution and move on, and that the safety of our female students would be taken a little more seriously, and our freedom of expression would be defended rather than attacked by our education system.
And the freedom of religion, your belief in a Catholic
Absolutely.
school. So tell us about the petition you've got going.
Yeah, we've got a petition. You can find it at libertycoalitioncanada.com, and that's probably, we've got some plans that we haven't yet released, but that'll come in handy. So if you want to support what we're doing, just go ahead and sign that petition.
Okay, and finally, Josh, how important is your Christian faith to you? Tell us about your relationship with Christ.
Yeah, it's incredibly important. I probably wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for it. And I recognize that our freedom of religion is under attack. And like I said earlier, God's natural order is under attack. The family unit in general is being attacked from every angle, and they're starting with the youth. You can see it not only in the education system, but even what they're doing with the Drag Queen Storytime hours. I was actually arrested a day after at the school. I was arrested twice in 2 days because I was quoting scripture outside of a Drag Queen Storytime, and the police arrested me for that and charged me again. So I would say my faith plays a fairly large role in it. I'm not going to silence myself. We're told to go into the world and preach the gospel, and that's what I'm going to continue to do. Yeah, we'll see where that goes.
And there are consequences in a fallen world when you do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Josh Alexander, all the best to you. Thank you for sharing your time and thoughts. God bless you.
Thank you. God bless.
Amazing, isn't it? Saturday, the 4th of March. International Atomic Agency Director Rafael Grossi's statement that the UN outlaws Israel from attacking Iran in spite the threats of Iran against Israel. Quote, "We will wipe you off the map." Watch what happened.
Today on the newscast, the head of the UN's atomic watchdog says that any strike against a nuclear installation is outlawed. What does that mean for Israel and Iran? And what does Benjamin Netanyahu have to say about it? Find out next. Hey folks, Eric Stakelbeck here. Welcome to the Watchman Newscast. A very busy weekend regarding Iran's nuclear program. The head of the UN's Atomic Watchdog Agency, his name is Rafael Grossi, and he heads up the International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA for short. He visited Tehran for 2 days, where he met with top Iranian officials, including Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi. also known as the Butcher of Tehran, and for good reason. It seems that Rafael Grossi emerged from these meetings with Iran's mullahs very encouraged about the future status of Iran's nuclear program and Iran's transparency regarding it all. He also had some very troubling statements that caught the attention of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Find out what exactly Grossi said and how Bibi responded in a minute. Up first, just a quick reminder, if you have not subscribed yet, be sure to subscribe to the Watchman News channel right here on YouTube and click the notification bell so you get alerts every time a new video is posted. Folks, we are covering the stories that the mainstream media is ignoring, so we would love to have you here with us as watchmen and women on the wall for such a time as this. A lot going on in the world's most chaotic and strategic region, the Middle East, and we break down what it all means and how it affects you, no matter where you live, so be sure to subscribe. Okay, let's get into it. Rafael Grossi, is this peace in our time? Where have we heard that before? He came out of this meeting with Raisi and others over the weekend very encouraged, and he held a press conference on Saturday, March 4th, in which he said a few things. Number one, that Iran would now be more compliant. They are going to allow cameras back inside of their nuclear installations. How nice. The IAEA cameras will apparently be in full operation once again, at least at select sites. Remember, Iran's nuclear facilities are scattered throughout the country, and it is a very large country. Iran is sits upon a very large landmass. That's number one. Number two, apparently the Iranian regime just generally is going to be more in compliance with UN regulations and in particular UN inspections. When it comes to all of that, folks, I'll believe it when I see it. We have heard this all before. The old saying, fool me twice. And the ironic thing here is Rafael Grossi has been pretty forthright about the Iranian nuclear threat over the past few years. He's made statements saying, look, folks, they are very close to having the bomb. Something needs to be done. That's why I'm scratching my head. And certainly Benjamin Netanyahu and Israeli officials were scratching their heads about comments Grossi made over the weekend on Saturday, March 4th, in the context of him talking about these great, apparently fruitful talks with Iranian officials. He also said, and I quote, any strike against a nuclear facility is outlawed and does not, and I'm paraphrasing here, and does not fit with basically the norms of polite society. It was the essence of what Rafael Grossi said. But any strike against a nuclear facility is outlawed? Folks, read between the lines. It's not too hard to understand. Number one, when he's talking about a strike against nuclear facilities, clearly he's talking about Iran's nuclear facilities, and clearly he's addressing Israel. He didn't have to mention the players. We all know who Rafael Grossi was talking about. Why would he say that? Well, number one, he knows Iran's driving for the bomb. Number two, he knows it's an existential threat to the existence of the state of Israel, not to mention the entire region and the world ultimately. Grossi knows all of this, and he also knows that Benjamin Netanyahu means business. He has said time and time again, we will not allow Iran to acquire the bomb, and if we need to resort to the military option, we will have to unfortunately do that to preserve the existence of the world's one and only Jewish state. So, in my view, wildly irresponsible and short-sighted for Rafael Grossi to say that. It appears that Benjamin Netanyahu agrees, not surprisingly, of course. Here's what he said. I'm going to read it from my phone and just quote him directly. And he was none too happy, folks. He said, and I quote, Rafael Grossi is a worthy person who made an unworthy remark. Outside of what law, he asked, can we not strike? Is Iran, which publicly calls for our destruction, is it to protect its weapons of destruction that will slaughter us? Are we forbidden to defend ourselves? Netanyahu continued. Of course we are allowed, and of course we are doing this. Nothing will prevent us from protecting our country and preventing oppressors from destroying the Jewish state. Game, set, match. So hopefully point taken by Rafael Grossi again to tell Israel in so many words. Again, he didn't have to mention Israel or Iran. We all know what he was talking about. To tell Israel, don't you dare strike Iran's nuclear facilities. Instead, Israel, allow a regime committed to your destruction to acquire those weapons. Guess what, folks? If Iran went nuclear, and I firmly believe Israel will not allow that to happen, and Rafael Grossi knows that, and by the way, the U.S. knows that. That's one of the reasons you saw Mark Milley, the U.S. General Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, in Israel over the past week. There are serious concerns among the Biden administration that Israel may just act against Iran. Hey, we had a U.S. official testify last week that Iran is likely just 12 days away from having enough material to develop at least one bomb. And we know that the IAEA has said even that Iran is enriching uranium, at least at one site, to up to 84%. Not to get too in the weeds, know this. When you enrich uranium at a 90% level, that is weapons grade. That is the level where you can start producing nuclear weapons. Based on the Iranian regime's statements, they would use the bomb against Israel. Folks, it is a central pillar of the Iranian regime's ideology to wipe Israel off the map. It is a driving force behind their entire rationale for existence. I've said it before, I'll say it again today. What I do is not brain surgery. I simply observe and listen to the statements of Iran's leaders, and I believe them. And if the 20th century taught us anything, the century of Mao, Saddam, Hitler, and Stalin, it's that when evil men tell you they want to kill you, you should indeed listen to them and take them at their word. I don't believe what the Iranian regime is saying about Israel, or America for that matter, is just bluster for domestic consumption. Neither does Benjamin Netanyahu, no matter what Rafael Grossi and the UN say about an outlaw against a strike on Iran's nuclear facilities. No one wants to see it. It's an absolute last resort. But again, it all falls on Israel's shoulders, much as it did in 1981 when Israel struck Saddam Hussein's nuclear reactor, and much as it did in 2007 when Israel eliminated Syria's nuclear reactor. Do you sense a pattern there? When a hostile neighbor begins to develop nuclear weapons, Israel acts preemptively. Iran has certainly noticed that. So has the UN. Everyone knows the stakes. Everyone with common sense knows Israel's not going to sit on the sidelines and watch this all happen. Collision course, folks. Fasten your seatbelts. Stay in prayer. Again, no one wants to see this, but here on The Watchman, we are very realistic. It's not pie in the sky, and we think you'd rather know than not know, and that's why you tune into the channel. So we will keep bringing you real news from a biblical perspective for such a time as this. Again, continue to keep this in prayer. The God of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. So at the end of the day, I think Israel is in very good shape, although certainly the wolves are at the door. Hey, thanks so much for joining us here today on the Watchman Newscast. Until tomorrow, God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Just shake our heads. Sunday, the 5th of March, Israeli Foreign Minister Eli Cohen is working to normalize ties with Mauritania, Somalia, Niger, and Indonesia to add them to the countries of the Abraham Accord. He keeps working hard at that. Whether it will happen, who knows? Maybe that's already part of what will happen when Antichrist comes and brings many nations together with Israel. It could certainly be. Monday the 6th of March, South Korea approves howitzer transfer to Ukraine for Russia war. The approval of export licenses for howitzers may indicate a change of South Korea's public stance on providing weapons to the Ukraine. From South Korea, Amazing, even South Korea, all that way far away, are getting involved by sending special, very sophisticated weapons to the Ukraine. Tuesday the 7th of August, an Iranian lawmaker said Tehran expects a delivery of Su-35 fighter jets from Russia by mid-March. By the end of 2023, Iran will have enough uranium enriched to 60% to produce 10 bombs, according to a senior Israel official. Russia has offered Iran unprecedented defense cooperation, including on missiles, electronics, and air defense. The longer you wait, the harder that becomes, Netanyahu said of a strike on Iran at a security conference in Tel Aviv last week. So the further we go, the harder it will get. Now that Iran is getting those sophisticated, modern Su-35 fighter jets from Russia. Wednesday the 8th, an Arab blogger who follows the movements of aircraft in the Middle East notes unusual movement of Israeli fighter jets alongside Israel transport planes and American refueling planes on their way to an American base in Spain. According to the blogger, the distance between Israel and Spain is the same as the distance between Israel and Iran, only in the opposite direction. Thursday the 9th of March. The US Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin just landed in Israel and is holding meetings with Israel's Prime Minister and Defense Minister. These urgent meetings are coming side by side with unprecedented joint military exercises of the Israeli and American air forces. Iran is very nervous. There you have that meeting that went on there in Israel, with the flags of Israel and Iran side by side. On the same day, a 5.0 magnitude earthquake just struck central Italy. The European Mediterranean Seismological Center said the quake was at a depth of 2 kilometers, it's about 1.24 miles, and the epicenter of the quake was at a distance of 27 kilometers northwest of Perugia, Italy, the EMSC said. So again, earthquakes continuing worldwide. Friday the 10th of March. A widespread attack in Ukraine. Missiles were launched from the Caspian Sea by 10 Russian Tu-95 bombers and suicide drones. And there is a map and you can see where all those different explosions happen all over the country. Saturday the 11th of March. New deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Arch rivals Iran and Saudi Arabia agree to restore ties after years of tension. The deal, which will see the two leading oil producers reopen embassies in each other's capitals, was sealed during a meeting in Beijing. So first of all, China and not the USA has brokered this deal. China did. Secondly, Saudi Arabia will not allow Israel to cross their country in the coming Israeli attack on Iran. In the past, the Saudis said, yeah, use our airspace. You can even use landing area in Saudi Arabia. Refuel before you get across the Gulf. Now they say, no more. Can't use our space. We have a deal with I was going to say Persia. Iran is the new name. And then number 3, another end-time puzzle piece falls into place. Saudi Arabia will not help Israel in the coming war, but only complain. Ezekiel 38 and 39, we call it sometimes the Gog and Magog war that will happen between Israel and many nations, including Iran and Russia and Turkey. But Saudi Arabia will only complain, not get involved. Sunday the 12th of March. Huge boom from North Korea. Kim Jong-un and his daughter watched a launch exercise of at least 6 tactical nuclear missiles, allegedly, intended to destroy airfields in South Korea. So they're practicing of what they think is going to be a coming war between North and South Korea. And so they keep their rockets developing and multiplying for that event. Monday the 13th of March. Panic in Wall Street. The trade in stock of 22 banks has stopped. There are 22 banks that have trouble financially, and their stocks kept going down and down until Wall Street stopped trading. And so the panic is what happens if we reopen and it keeps on dropping, and it could affect the whole stock market. Well, fortunately, the blessing was that it stopped falling, and normalcy came back to it. Tuesday the 14th of March. Cyclone Freddy hits Mauritius, Madagascar, Malawi and Mozambique with over 100 killed. Watch the horrible scenes as they are presented to us. You just shake our heads. Sunday the 5th of March. Israeli Foreign Minister Eli Cohen is working to normalize ties with Mauritania, Somalia, Niger and Indonesia, to add them to the countries of the Abraham Accord. He keeps working hard at that. Whether it will happen, who knows? Maybe that's already part of what will happen when Antichrist comes and brings many nations together with Israel. It could certainly be. Monday the 6th of March. South Korea approves howitzer transfer to Ukraine for Russia war. The approval of export licenses for howitzers may indicate a change of South Korea's public stance on providing weapons to the Ukraine from South Korea. Amazing, even South Korea, all that way far away, are getting involved by sending special, very sophisticated weapons to the Ukraine. Tuesday the 7th of August, an Iranian lawmaker said Tehran expects a delivery of Su-35 fighter jets from Russia by mid-March. By the end of 2023, Iran will have enough uranium enriched to 60% to produce 10 bombs, according to a senior Israel official. Russia has offered Iran unprecedented defense cooperation, including on missiles, electronics, and air defense. The longer you wait, the harder that becomes, Netanyahu said of a strike on Iran at a security conference in Tel Aviv last week. So the further we go, the harder it will get. Now that Iran is getting those sophisticated, modern Su-35 fighter jets from Russia. Wednesday the 8th, an Arab blogger who follows the movement of aircraft in the Middle East notes unusual movement of Israeli fighter jets alongside Israel transport planes and American refueling planes on their way to an American base in Spain. According to the blogger, the distance between Israel and Spain is the same as the distance between Israel and Iran, only in the opposite direction. Thursday the 9th of March. The US Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, just landed in Israel and is holding meetings with Israel's Prime Minister and Defense Minister. These urgent meetings are coming side by side with unprecedented joint military exercises of the Israeli and American air forces. Iran is very nervous. There you have that meeting that went on there in Israel, with the flags of Israel and Iran side by side. On the same day, a 5.0 magnitude earthquake just struck central Italy. The European Mediterranean Seismological Center said the quake was at a depth of 2 kilometers, it's about 1.24 miles, and the epicenter of the quake was at a distance of 27 kilometers northwest of Perugia, Italy, the EMSC said. So again, earthquakes continuing worldwide. Friday the 10th of March. A widespread attack in Ukraine. Missiles were launched from the Caspian Sea by 10 Russian Tu-95 bombers and suicide drones. And there is a map, and you can see where all those different explosions happen all over the country. Saturday the 11th of March. New deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Arch rivals Iran and Saudi Arabia agree to restore ties after years of tension. The deal, which will see the two leading oil producers reopen embassies in each other's capitals, was sealed during a meeting in Beijing. So first of all, China and not the USA has brokered this deal. China did. Secondly, Saudi Arabia will not allow Israel to cross their country in the coming Israeli attack on Iran. In the past, the Saudis said, yeah, use our airspace. You can even use landing area in Saudi Arabia. Refuel before you get across the Gulf. Now they say, no more. Can't use our space. We have a deal with I was going to say Persia. Iran is the new name. And then number 3, another end-time puzzle piece falls into place. Saudi Arabia will not help Israel in the coming war, but only complain. Ezekiel 38 and 39, we call it sometimes the Gog and Magog war that will happen between Israel and many nations, including Iran and Russia and Turkey. But Saudi Arabia will only complain, not get involved. Sunday the 12th of March, huge boom from North Korea. Kim Jong-un and his daughter watched a launch exercise of at least 6 tactical nuclear missiles, allegedly, intended to destroy airfields in South Korea. So they're practicing of what they think is going to be a coming war between North and South Korea. And so they keep their rockets developing and multiplying for that event. Monday the 13th of March. Panic in Wall Street. The trade in stock of 22 banks has stopped. There are 22 banks that have trouble financially, and their stocks kept going down and down until Wall Street stopped trading. And so the panic is what happens if we reopen and it keeps on dropping, and it could affect the whole stock market. Well, fortunately, the blessing was that it stopped falling, and normalcy came back to it. Tuesday the 14th of March. Cyclone Freddy hits Mauritius, Madagascar, Malawi, and Mozambique with over 100 killed. Watch the horrible scenes as they are presented to us.
Nearly 100 people are confirmed dead in Malawi after Cyclone Freddy slammed into southeastern Africa with torrential rain and high winds. This is the second time in a month that Freddy has made landfall in southern Africa, having earlier struck Madagascar. It is one of the strongest and the longest-lasting storms to ever be recorded in the southern hemisphere.
Somewhere under these washed-off roads in Malawi are people. Rescue workers like Tresto and Chikafutwa are trying to find them.
So far, we have recovered 30 bodies, but we're not yet done. We're still looking for more victims. I'm using this hoe to at least find someone.
Cyclone Freddy has wrecked houses in the city of Blantyre and created rushing streams that residents are struggling to cross. Many of the injured have been taken to hospitals, but others are still missing.
It was so bad in the night. Now that it's daytime, I can feel the loss. I've never seen something as terrible as this. My neighbors' homes are gone. Their family members are gone. In some cases, the father is alive, but the wife and the children are missing.
Cyclone Freddy killed several people in Mozambique before making its way to Malawi. Scientists say such tropical storms are getting stronger due to climate change. They warn that severe weather like this will only become more frequent unless polluters drastically reduce carbon emissions.
Wednesday, the 15th of March. Russia pulls all its money out of Swiss banks. Gold prices kick up over 60%. So Russia decided banks are not safe, even in Switzerland, pull all their money out, and the gold prices kicked way up, at least for a short period of time. You can see that on this chart, and you can see how quickly things can change. Thursday, the 16th, Russia takes out an American drone, and of course that was all over the news, and you saw that, but let's listen and watch here what happened.
There are growing tensions between the U.S. and Russia following the downing of an American drone earlier this week.
That's right, and CBS News has learned the fighter pilots who took out that drone over the Black Sea were rewarded by the Russian military for their actions. The Pentagon releasing this footage. You've likely seen it by now. It shows the incident on Tuesday. You'll see that jet release its fuel all over the drone. Now, Russia denies its plane ever actually touched the unmanned aerial drone. Washington, though, refutes that, simply saying the Kremlin is lying.
Retired U.S. Air Force Colonel Scott Kane joins us now. Colonel Kane has more than 3,400 hours of flight experience. He is also a foreign policy expert. Colonel Kane, welcome. We know that the pilots were ordered to down this drone, which seems to change, obviously, how this situation is going to be viewed by the U.S. government, as opposed to the idea early on, there was speculation that perhaps the pilot went rogue. So from a foreign policy standpoint, what do you expect to happen next?
Well, and the fact that they were ordered to down the MQ-9 Reaper means that this was a calculated set of actions by the Russian government. And what I mean by that is that if you think back over the past 10, 12 years, they have been slowly escalating what they believe they can get away with to see how we're going to respond or retaliate. And, you think through the actions when they supported eastern Ukraine, then they took Crimea, then, when we didn't do anything in Syria, when the red line was crossed. These things send a message to Moscow that the United States is not really going to retaliate and or respond in kind to any kind of gesture on this part. And the really interesting part of this, I believe, is that the threat of nuclear war appears to be what they understand to be our red line in the United States. So anytime that we, when there's something that we do, they threaten nuclear war, and then we back off. So we don't actually ever respond, and they keep upping the ante. So I believe this is just one more step along the way for us to see the Russians up the ante towards potentially taking more ground in different countries.
It's interesting, Colonel Kane, as you talk about the steps that Russia has taken, because you could go as far back as when Russia invaded Georgia, right, and rolled into that sovereign country before it rolled into Crimea, before we ended up where we are now. But from your experience, how risky was this maneuver? Because the pilot would have had to have put themselves at risk by coming this close with a drone, and that risk, Russia willing to take that risk, tells us what?
Well, from the layman's perspective, it looks very risky, and frankly, if they hit the propeller, which it looks like they did, they probably got a little too close. You could certainly crash yourself if you hit another airplane. With that said, flying close to another airplane is something military pilots are taught to do all the time. And the drone or the MQ-9 is not moving or maneuvering away from the other fighter. So when you're taught to dogfight, you're taught to respond to an airplane that's pulling 9 Gs in a different direction. This one's pulling 1 G and it's just standing still. So the simple fact is that they felt very comfortable getting really close to that airplane. It looks like they got closer and closer, dumping fuel on it. And my guess is the pilots were trying to either use their jet wash or the fuel to disrupt the flight of the MQ-9 Reaper, and they just got a little too close and clipped the propeller, and that's ultimately what brought it down.
So, Colonel, Slovakia and Poland say that they will begin sending fighter jets to Ukraine. Based on your experience, I wonder how long you think it will take for Ukraine to get pilots trained, and what kind of a difference do you think that will make in the conflict?
Sending airplanes that are light kind is actually pretty helpful. The Ukrainians are a former Soviet country. They've got MiGs and Sukhoi aircraft, so they are used to Russian-style aircraft. And if they're the same variety of a Su-27 or a MiG-29 that they have, then it's not much of a transition. There may be a few switches or whatnot are in different places, or things that are just kind of like getting in a different car. You kind of very rapidly figure it out, and then you can move on from there. The challenge in that regard will be whether or not these aircraft are fully operational and capable to do the mission. Any airplane that you add to their inventory essentially gives them spares in their front line of fighters that they would fly on a daily basis. So, as a former fighter squadron commander, if you gave me, 6 more airplanes, I'd love it, because I've got more airplanes to rotate through my inventory. And as long as they're up to speed, that's a big win. There's a difference between us giving F-16s and a former Soviet country giving MiGs or Sukhois, and that would be a completely different animal.
Interesting. It's so helpful to have your perspective. Colonel Scott Kane. Colonel, thanks so much.
Thank you, Colonel.
A pleasure. Thank you.
Friday, 17th of March. Russia hardens the tone towards Israel. Israel's violent attacks in Syria must stop. The Security Council discussion marks a measured worsening of Russia's tone towards Israel, a foreign minister official said. So as the Israelis keep on destroying Iranian stuff that is shipped in and flown in, the Russians say, you need to stop that, Israel. So they are supposed to allow the weapons that will be used against Israel just to come in and sit there? I don't think so. Not Netanyahu. Saturday, the 18th of March. At least 12 dead, widespread damage after a 6.5 magnitude earthquake strikes off the coast of Ecuador. The earthquake that struck Saturday afternoon affected southern Ecuador and northern Peru. People were trapped beneath rubble as rescue teams were sent out into streets flooded by downed power lines. It just continues on. It doesn't want to stop. Sunday the 19th. Assad offers Putin expanded permanent bases in Syria. Russian forces already maintain a large air base at Khmeimim, a naval facility at Tartus on the Mediterranean, and in the last 3 months acquired another northern air base at Al-Jara in Aleppo. This is Ezekiel 38 that says, I will turn you around, put hooks into your jaws, and bring you out with all your whole army, your horses, your horsemen fully armed, and a great horde with large and small shields, all of them brandished their swords. Persia, Cush, and Put will be with them, all with shields and helmets, also Gomer with all its troops, and Beth Togarmah from the far north. It's talking about the country in the far north. Rush. It will come down, like pulled down with a hook in the jaw. Pulled down by God. That war will happen. Ezekiel 38 and 39 spend more time on this particular coming war, end-time war, than on any other war in Scripture. Monday the 20th, major earthquake of 7.7 in China, Afghanistan, Pakistan and other countries. A 6.6 magnitude in India, a 5.6 magnitude in Chile. It keeps on going. Tuesday the 21st of March, Iranian young people are fleeing Iran. What is happening? They're fleeing to Azerbaijan in the north. Why? Because there's freedom. Because there are Christians up there, and especially Christian young people who are under persecution, are fleeing to the north, getting away from Iran. And of course Iran is not too happy about that and tries to stop it. But there are, by the thousands, young people are crossing the border.
Welcome to Christian World News. I'm Wendy Griffith. Violence is rocking Iran. Hundreds of protesters have been killed as security forces crack down on women who violate Islamic dress code. Thousands of girls have been injured in mysterious poisonous gas attacks against their schools. All this has thousands of Iranians fleeing the country. As Chuck Holton shows us, a group of Christians in neighboring Armenia are waiting to meet them with the message of Jesus Christ.
A groundbreaking cultural shift is underway across Iran. Months of protests against the regime have been brutally repressed by police, leaving more than 500 dead. Hundreds of girls' schools have seen their students hospitalized in a wave of poisonings. All the fear and uncertainty has left many looking for an escape. Thousands are now fleeing north to one of the only free and democratic countries in the region, Armenia.
There are a lot of global geopolitical conflicts that are represented in this remote border crossing you see in Iran right behind me. You have Russia, which does a lot of trade with Iran. A lot of the weapons that end up in Ukraine may come through this area. And you also have Azerbaijan, which wants this corridor in order to reach Turkey and the West. And right in the middle of it all, you have this tiny country of Armenia, which is functioning as a safe spot for Christians and other Iranians who are fleeing persecution inside their country.
And then right here you see this river. It's called the Araks River. And the Araks River is basically the border between Armenia and Iran. And if you go a little farther to the west, it's the border also from Turkey and Armenia.
And this is the only border crossing between Iran and Armenia,
That's
right?
correct. This is the only border crossing that Iranians coming in, they can come into Armenia only at this spot. So it's illegal in Iran to proselytize. So as a Christian, you're not able to go to...
Wednesday the 22nd, a Syrian national arrested by Israeli security forces has provided valuable insight into the methods of Hezbollah, terror group used in its efforts to harm citizens of the State of Israel. As you know, Hezbollah is called the party of Allah, and there you see in the picture their salute. Doesn't that remind you of things that happened in the past in Germany under Hitler? Yes, that's again there, but this time it's against Israel and Israel alone, and that group is out to destroy the State of Israel. Thursday the 23rd of March, record number of Jews visited the Temple Mount over Purim of 2023. And of course, the Muslims were not happy about that. The country of Jordan was not happy about that, especially the king of Jordan, who tries to stop the Jews from going up to the Temple Mount, even though that is the Temple Mount, not of Muslims, but the Temple Mount of God's temple, and where the third temple, and then God's temple, the fourth temple, will be located right there. Friday the 24th. Attack on US base follows American airstrikes in Syria. Second missile attack targets US base in northern Syria. And then there is a third attack that had come on the bases in northern Syria. Saturday the 25th, technology report, Daniel 12:4, as you know, talks about in the end time what will happen. Knowledge will increase, not wisdom, but knowledge. And look how in England a grocery store is run.
This is a grocery packing warehouse in the southeast of London. Folks have ordered their groceries online, and instead of people walking up and down the aisles of a traditional grocery store to pick up items, these little devices move more than 1 million items every day between them. Instead of trying to build machines that fit into a world designed for humans, this entire facility, the size of 7 football fields, is custom built to make this as efficient as possible. I cannot get across on camera just how incredibly large this whole place is. The top speed of those boxes is about 14 kilometers an hour, and they pass within 5 millimeters of each other when they move. So, how many robots are there in the hive? Well, that depends on how you count them.
What you're looking at behind me is the hive. We've got the grid, which is the metal structure. It's filled with products. So that product is housed within what we call totes, or these open boxes that you can see at the top of the grid. We have around 2,300 bots, and they move the stock around the warehouse so that we can pair it up with customer orders to be delivered. The bots will move in the X and Y direction. They can also move in the Z direction. So we have a cable hoist system that means that they can lower down a gripper assembly and grab onto the stock that we have in the grid. In some areas we have as deep as 21 totes all in a line. We have sensors underneath the bot that mean that every time it passes over one of the squares on the grid, it has a laser underneath it that can tell when it moves over that cell. So it will say, I've passed a cell, I've passed a cell, I've passed a cell. We have around 58,000 different types of individual products within the grid. We'll use the huge amounts of data that we gather to understand what customers are most likely to order and place them in the easiest to reach locations for bots. All of that combined means that we can have stock into the warehouse and out again from our suppliers into a delivery van in just 5 hours.
The robots deliver their crates over to the packing area. Some of that packing is done by humans, but there are mechanical arms as well. One of the big problems they've got to solve is that grocery packaging is designed for people, and the interactions between all the objects they deal with can be complicated.
Currently we're standing underneath the grid structure that we saw earlier. The robots that we saw are actually dropping off products to the station. Once they're dropped off, they become in control of the robot, and the robot decides how to pick them before the grid robot picks up the tote and takes it away again. There's 2 3D cameras above the totes, so it takes an image of the storage box before it picks from it, decides on the best grasp point, confirm that the product is correct, and then place it into a customer shopping. And it's doing all of that on live customer orders. We make sure that we don't mix something that was heavy with something that's soft. There are things that the robot can't pack, things such as very, very heavy, very large, or very fragile items, but there's a lot of range in between that.
It's fairly safe to call each individual packing arm a robot. Each one has a separate controller, and it has to make a lot of decisions in real time using cameras and sensors on each individual arm. But here in the hive, it's not quite as simple.
Controlling all of this is what we refer to as the hive mind. So this artificial intelligence system that controls everything. Once the stock comes in, from that exact point that it enters the system, the hive mind will track its every single movement. The hive mind will tell the bots exactly where they need to stop, but it is the bot's control system that allows it to follow a movement profile and stop exactly as the hive mind expects it to. There's just a 5 millimeter gap between bots, so that's both as they pass each other and if they stop next to a bot as well. This bot with the orange light may have experienced something within its sensors and all of those readings it's taking, that when it feeds that back to the hive mind, it's not quite what the hive mind was expecting, so it just brings it to a safe stop for investigation. We do have a number of grid operators that sit at the edge of the grid, and they're able to use our CCTV system that we have above the grid to look at exactly what's going on with that bot, and they can try and fix that remotely and send commands to the bot wirelessly.
The boundary between individual and group is a little blurry. Is a termite colony and a collection of individuals working together, or one big superorganism? Is the microbiome in your gut part of you? Because in the last couple of decades, scientists have started to work out that the bacteria in your digestive system produce and consume neurotransmitters that affect how you think. but most people wouldn't consider their gut bacteria to be part of them. We tend to ascribe intelligence and identity to things that act at roughly our scale. It's easy to look at the hive, see the moving boxes and go, okay, 2,000 robots. But with only one controller and the boxes just following the paths they're given, I'd say there's a good argument that that is one robot with 2,000 ways to interact with the world. Thank you so much to everyone here at Ocado. There is a link to them and more about their technology in the description.
The 26th. In news that should send a chill down the spine of every patriot, Bill Gates is calling on world leaders to surrender the sovereignty of their nations to the World Health Organization's Global Health Emergency Corps. Gates argues that the WHO, which is World Health Organization, should be viewed as a global fire department for pandemics that seizes control of nations on a global level during health emergencies. All 194, that's almost all the countries in the world, 194 of the WHO member nations are set to vote on the amendments and finalize the new treaty by May of 2024. It's coming, brothers and sisters. One world government. Monday the 27th. Iran is moving heavy weapons to the border with Azerbaijan, including rocket launchers, as the tensions between the two countries escalate. The transfer of weapons, picture from today, is an Iranian warning. So the Iranians have moved right there in those bare mountains. That's the terrain that's over there. Many of their rockets and military equipment to warn Azerbaijan from doing anything. And we know that Israel has a base in Azerbaijan, and the people from Azerbaijan, the military, wants to help Israel against Iran because they are enemies. And so what do we hear in Matthew 24:6? Rumors of war. There you have it, rumors of war. Tuesday the 28th of March, North Korea claimed Friday to have tested a nuclear-capable underwater drone designed to generate a gigantic radioactive tsunami that would destroy naval strike groups and ports. Analysts were skeptical that the device presents a major new threat, but the test underlines the North's commitment to raising nuclear threats. So whether this picture, that is of course fiction, could be true or not is questionable, but that's what North Korea claims, and I wouldn't bring it past them. They are capable of those kind of things. Wednesday the 29th. Jerusalem reportedly warns the US and European allies that Tehran's stockpiling of the product beyond 60% enrichment could trigger military action. Iranian progress above the 60% threshold could prompt military strikes against Tehran's nuclear facilities. And when they say 60%, that's because after that it can go very quick, and Israel claims that they have found out that it's already in the high 80s, and so once it reaches 90, they can immediately go ahead and produce the bombs that they want to wipe off Israel off the map. And finally, Thursday the 30th of March, Israel in total chaos. Shopping malls are closed, doctors only take urgent cases, the international airport is closed, hotel chains are shutting down, schools, universities are closed, all national parks closed, all government offices are closed, all museums closed, all banks closed. What is happening? Well, as you know, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu decided to change some of the laws concerning the judges. It's like our high court in America. selected by the ruling party. And that's not the case in Israel. And so Netanyahu wanted to change it to be like the American example. But in Israel, there are so many small parties, and they all claim if that happens, we have no more word, we have no more say, we have no more power. And so by the hundreds of thousands, Israelis went to the streets, especially in Tel Aviv, but also in Jerusalem. In fact, in Jerusalem, they walked towards the home of Netanyahu and wanted to kick him out physically. And they broke through the police barriers, but there was a secondary barrier by the secret police, and they were able to stop. Thank goodness. Who knows what would have happened? Maybe a lynching would have happened. Who knows? But things are very bad right now in Israel. The liberals, the left is so strong, especially down in Tel Aviv, that they have destroyed the unity of Israel. And this morning, Benjamin Netanyahu said, we might be of different mindsets, but remember, we're brothers, we're Jews. Stop this. We can do this in peace. There is an enemy out there. They're just waiting. They're laughing at us right now of what's happening in Israel. And who knows, they might prepare an attack. They actually had a meeting at 3 o'clock in the morning in Iran. And who knows what they discussed. Maybe, is this the time of an attack? Should we go and attack Israel? We live in serious times. But we also live in times when the coming of the Lord is very, very close. So, brothers and sisters, again, look up, because our redemption is drawing near. The things that are happening in the world, faster and faster. I can't even keep up. I left out many, many articles because it would take too much time. But it's happening. And we are watching it live from our living room, through the television and through the computers. Let's pray. Lord, we're looking forward to your coming. We thank you for the wonderful promise of the rapture that we can happen anytime. It's imminent. Nothing else has to happen. And it might be also very soon. We do not know, like a thief in the night. But we come prepared for that event because we know it's going to happen, and it might happen soon. So thank you for your word that tells us, that prepares us for those things, and that we can just trust in you and depend on you, for you are our King, our Lord, and our Savior. And we love you and thank you in Jesus' precious name. Amen. Thank you for watching. And if the Lord so desires not to come, we'll see you next month. Until then, goodbye.